Hello and welcome to my FL Studio mobile tutorial. My name is Pablo Malgo from Developing Dreams Foundation. I'm making this video because this is one of the programs that we teach to our kids that we work with in middle schools and high schools throughout South Florida. And I wanted to do a quick little video giving them the layout so they could go back and refresh their memory if they ever had any questions, right? So I hope you get a lot out of this video. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope it helps you as well. You don't have to have any musical experience or anything. I'm going to teach you from the ground up using FL Studio Mobile. The reason I'm doing this is because a lot of the kids that we work with come from low-income communities sometimes, so they don't really have access to computers, things like Wi-Fi, so forth. So I use something that I think would be financially within their range so they can continue to make progress and hopefully grow their passion in something that they find that they love, right? So that's why we use this program. It's $14.99 on the Google Play Store. It's also $14.99 in the Apple Store. I'm making this video February 2024. I don't know if it's been up since then or when you're seeing this video. However, I think it's a fairly decent program. There are some other free ones out there, a little bit similar layouts, and I'll go over some of that in this video a little bit later. But for now, I'm just going to walk you through this program first, step by step, kind of show you around so you know where things are, and then we'll start cooking and we'll make some music. All right, so let me walk you through the program a little bit, show you around a little bit, and then we'll start cooking up some music. Cool? All right. It's important for me because I want to make sure that you know where things are in the program before I start just blabbing on. And if I have to stop every time I get to a new section and teach it to you, then it's probably going to take up a lot of time. And some of you guys know some of this stuff. Some of you guys are learning from the beginning. And if you do feel like you know some of this stuff, please definitely check out some of the other videos in this series for a little bit more advanced usage of the FL Studio mobile app. All right, great. So here we go. I'm going to go to my FL Studio. When you open FL Studio, it usually looks like this, okay? This is my first time opening up on this computer, so I'm going to walk you through. I presently have no songs, so I'm going to walk you through what these little tabs are here, why you would need them, and then we're going to go into the program a little deeper. First things first, songs. This is where a list of your songs will be after you make your songs. Every time you close the program, you come back, your songs will be here. Make sure to save your songs regularly, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in depth when we get there. So second part here is project. Okay. This is nothing you have to worry about right now, but as you can see, you can put your name here and maybe your website link or your Instagram link or wherever you keep your beats so that people can find you. And this is like a personal tag. So if somebody downloads your song from the internet, this will be in the back end of your song. So they can always find out who the artist is. And I think it's a good idea to fill this out. All right. So moving to settings, we have MIDI, we have audio, we have application, user interface, and backup. I'm going to come back up here. I want to show you something. I think a couple of these things are very necessary. Right now, I'm not going to talk much about MIDI because we're going to get into that a little bit later. However, MIDI is being able to input sound into your computer, maybe using a external keyboard or external drum triggering pad or drum machine. And then you can later convert that sound into other sounds once it's in. So a MIDI is kind of like a changeable file, let's say, okay? What you will learn is that almost all of these files are changeable if you know what you're doing. So stick around. All right, so audio. I'm going to go over to audio, enable audio recorder latency. I'm going to guess we don't have that problem yet unless your phone is really full or you're having trouble with the program running a little slow. You can click this and it'll kind of help you adjust the usage of the program. It won't be so heavy on your phone, and also it will run a little smoother. I'm going to leave that alone for now. 32-bit formatting, if you're on a mobile device, might not be a bad idea. Multi-core processing, you can do that. It's kind of the way that it delivers the sound. Multi-core usually has a couple core processing devices inside. So If you're just on a phone or a mobile device, I don't really think it's necessary, okay? Unless you have like a super high-end one that has a multi-core system inside of it, built in already, which is not as common. Okay, application. Enable multi-track recording. I don't see that necessary. Enable count in when recording. I like that. Yes, I'm going to put on because when I want to record something, it's going to give me a click, tick, 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 and it's going to click. And then I can start on the next one, beginning of the second bar. So that's kind of useful. Here, enable ghost notes. I highly recommend that. You'll see why later when we get there. Enable sharing files with nearby devices. I don't have a need for that. And set middle C to C4. Why not? Let's do that. All right. So let's go down a little bit more. Let me see what else we have. Continue scrolling using the user interface. Continue scrolling. Show key names on keyboards and piano rolls. I do recommend this. Show key names on keyboard and piano roll because you will need to know if you're not much of a musician or you never played the piano, you won't really know which keys are which. This will tell you which keys are which, and I find it to be necessary. All right. All right. So I think that's all I'm going to do here right now. Okay. So then we're going to go on to the next tab. Next tab is shop. Here you can buy more samples and more loops, more drums, more pianos, more loops, kind of very helpful section. You'll get a few of them free, as you can see, and some of them are to be paid for. They're usually like $1.99, $2.99, $3.99, $5, $6.99. So they're not that bad in price, I find, for all things you can do with this program. And if you want to test one out to see what it's like, you just push here. Sorry if that was kind of loud, and you can sample and skip through and hear kind of the changes in the package that they're trying to sell you. This one right here is a chilled instruments and 52 laid back drum samples. Kind of cool. But I believe that's more individual hits, which is great. But I'm going to encourage you to at first start working on getting your loops together, and later on you'll build an ear and you'll then want to get specific kinds of drums. Okay, just my recommendation. Do however you please. Later on in this program, I'm also going to show you how to find sounds to use and how to import them into your computer. All right, very cool. Here on files, if I want to back up or I want to share my files, I would use that tab. Cool. So going back to the beginning, I'm back at songs, right? Here we go, right here. I'm going to click new. I'm going to open an empty template first because I want to walk you through everything from scratch. And then if you will understand a little better, you can go back and use some of the other templates that they have for you, which I find to be useful sometimes, okay? So I'm gonna hit an empty template. Unsaved changes. I didn't make that song, that was a demo song, but we're gonna hit save anyway. When I get here, I'm gonna click on this and type in my name. Okay. Then I'm going to set my tempo. Now this is kind of important. And there's a few things to understand when you're setting a tempo. The tempo or the BPM is the speed of the music, generally. There are exceptions to that, but ultimately it's the tempo of the music. There are things you can do like slowing this down and making it sound double the speed by placing more drums and more sounds inside. Or you can speed it up and use the beats in halftime and make it sound a lot slower. So there are a lot of tricks to this. I'm from a school where I like to do like 80 to about 100 for my hip hop and R&B. And if I'm going to do like a house or disco or dance beat, I might go up to 110, 120, 130, 140. I usually stay somewhere between 140 and 150. max. That's not a rule of thumb, just where I like to play. You can go to 170, 200, or maybe, I don't even know how far this thing goes up, but you get the idea. Okay, so for me, I'm going to go ahead and bring this down to about 90. Okay, and then I'm going to, you know what, I'm going to make it 80. And then I'm going to go over here to my time signature. I'm not going to touch it, but I want you to see this time signature. That means that the beat is 4/4. That's kind of important for you to know, because that's the typical pop or rap or country song on the radio today. Reggaeton, dancehall reggae, roots reggae, the whole nine. It's 4/4. But when you start getting into stuff like classical music, some music from Spain, jazz music, you'll start to notice that they have things like 6/4, 7/4, 8/4, or 3/4, and it's a little different. It has like a different swing to it because of the way that's played. And all that means is there are 4 beats um, in the bar. Okay, a bar is 4 beats, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that means this is 4 beats. But if I hit a 6/4, it would mean there would be 6 beats in that 4 count bar. Okay, so I don't want to confuse you, but just keep that in mind. So whatever the first number is here indicates how many beats are in 4 beats. 4 beats equals a bar. We'll get into more detail about that right now, actually. So I'm going to leave everything else the same and hit OK. Now, before we go into looking at some of the sounds and things you can use to make your beats, I want to show you something here. This is your playhead. You can drag this along, and it's going to move along when you hit play. Or you can hit the space bar and it will play if you're on like a Chromebook or a computer. Okay, so this is your playhead. This here is for snapping, and snapping means being allowed to move something and the computer figures out the closest, most normal spot for that item to go to. And I'll go more into detail about that in a second when we have something here to actually show. Okay, here's another important thing. You see, this is a 2 here, this is a 3 here, this is a 4 here. Remember I told you that a lot of songs that we listen to today are 4/4? That pretty much just means that in this 1, 2, 3, 4, even though there's going to be several beats and drums and sounds in there, I'm focusing on the beat staying very even. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you see 1 is here when I move this over, 2 is here, 3, 4. Now, if you notice, in between 1 and 2, I have these little heavy stumps here, or these thicker black lines. They're thicker than the other lines. That's the beginning of a new beat. So this right here would be the 1 of a new beat. Now, if you have ever played an instrument or done anything that required a significant amount of rhythm, you may have learned that this could be 1 E and a. 1 E and a. Right? So some people count the music like that because they want to input things on the offbeat to create swing or vibe or feel, which we'll get into a little bit later as well. Yeah, we have a lot to go over. All right. So why is that important? Because generally, I want to start my beat on the 1. And if I wanted to put a note on the 2, I would go to the beginning of the next section with the heavy black line. If I want to put my beat on 3, I would put it here. And if I wanted to put my beat on 4, I would put it here. So like a 4 to the floor is boom, 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 or boom, cap, boom, cat. But a typical dance beat, what I was going to say, is more like boom, 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 boom. That would mean, for me, it would mean 1, 2, 3, 4. And what you would hear is boom, 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 right? We're going to get into a little bit more detail about that in a second. So I kind of want to show you that. So that's really important. Why that's important is because 16 of these make 1 bar of music. 1 bar of music is 4 beats. Okay, so that's really important. 16 these little squares. However, these 16 squares technically represent a count. And these 4 represent 1, these 4 represent 2, these 4 represent 3, and these 4 represent 4. And then the bar starts over, which is the second bar. A lot of times we're going to make our loops in either 1 bar or 2 bars. We make our loops. Sometimes they'll be longer. A lot of times you're going to do this, and then you're going to copy and paste, and then you're going to modify it as you go along, so it doesn't all sound the same. Okay, but it's very important that you stick to these lines, because if you go over the line, your song is not going to loop back, and it's going to kind of have an off rhythm by the time you're done. You have to go back and try to figure out where you messed up, and that's so tedious and such a brain wreck. I don't recommend it. So what I mean by that, I'll explain in a second when we get a loop in here, and you'll see what it means to line it up to the lines. Okay, nice. Over here, if we have to save our song, which I recommend every time you do something that you like, you come over here, you save it right under this little umbrella right here. Click, save. Nice. Okay. Over here, we have our aux or our effects channels. We can use some of these things to put effects on the sound that we have. So for example, let me see. What we have here is we have reverb. Reverb is like the space, right? So if, for example, if I was in a small room and I said, hey, that's what you get. You'll get, hey. But if I was in a big cathedral and I screamed, hey, you'd hear, hey, 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 hey. But you'd hear the space of the room, right? If I was inside of a tin trash can and I said, hey, you would hear the vibration of the tin, right? So a reverb is like choosing the space in which that sound or that voice is in. And it really does have a lot of effect on certain sounds and vocals. So that's something worth seeing. We have tape delay. That's the echo, pop, 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 really an echo. The other one is more, you just heard the reverb from the room, how the room is treated. But the echo is an intentional delay, ta, 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 ta. And I'll show you how to use some of those things, etc. So we'll get into some of these plugins and some of these effects later once we start building a beat, but I wanted to show you where they were. Okay, hit this little arrow here, boom, close that back. All right, down here we have our play button. We can rewind the track all the way to the beginning. So if this playhead was here and I hit this, it would take the playhead back to the beginning. My record is here. If I decide that I want to change the tempo of my song, and I'm like, maybe it should be a little faster, I can go here and I can plus 10, minus 10, minus 10. I can click here, move this ball around, whatever I like. Okay, so that's how I can modify my BPM later on if I decided to. And here you have a few other options, which we will definitely get into a little bit later. All right. To the right, this is your CPU. Remember I was telling you about the latency? This tells you how much energy is being used by your computer to run this program. Okay, mine is in the green, which means thumbs up. We're looking good. Anyway, so I'm going to come over here to my far left. And on the first part, I'm going to see my mixer. My mixer, as I start creating sounds and loops and beats, I'm going to have more lanes like this. And each one of those lanes are going to represent an individual instrument or individual loop. And I'm going to be able to control the volume level of those sounds by coming here. I can also do it without coming here, but I'll show you that when we get one in there. And this one here will be your piano when you have an instrument that uses a piano or could use a piano to play it out. Even if it was a violin, you would use your piano to play this out, when you can use your musical keyboard or your computer keyboard to do that a little bit later, or you could do it manually. You can use your MIDI keyboard if you have one, or you can use your computer keyboard or your drum machine plugged into here to trigger sounds. However, when you first hit it and you don't have any sounds open, it's going to take you to this, which is where you can choose which key you want your song to be in. We'll go over that a little bit later. Major, harmonic, melodic, minor. We'll talk about what those are, how to find them, and how to know the difference. Okay. And last thing here is we have this X, boom. It closes out, gives us a little bit more room because when we start making tracks, this plus sign will get a little bit lower. It'll be hard to access. So we may need to close this to access it, okay? Anyway, we got that. So let me click over here and show you what we have. When you click on this, it opens up a tab. And on that tab is going to tell you which instrument you have listed here and you're playing. This is the master channel. The master channel is where all of the tracks go to. So for example, you're going to create a drum kit, maybe a piano, maybe a bass, and all three of those tracks are going to run to the master channel. So if I was to hit the master channel, it would lower all those instruments all at once. If I was to turn it up, it would obviously turn it up all at once. Some people put effects and stuff on the master channel. I don't really recommend it, but there are times when I guess you could do it, especially on a bare bones program kind of like this, but you don't want to get carried away. And we'll go into why a little bit later in this program. We'll talk about mixing and making your song get ready to send out for mastering. Okay. So, okay, I'm sorry. I know that was long, but I wanted to explain to you and show you where everything was.